Life is like skiing. The goal isn't to get to the bottom of the hill, it's to have a bunch of good runs before the sun sets. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Athlete Podcast sponsored by Sports for Champions. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Team GB skier Charlotte Holmes. How are you today, Charlotte?
I'm very well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us. Absolute pleasure to have you. You're only our second skier on the roster, so delighted to have you here today. Can you tell us a little bit about how you first got into skiing?
So I first got in quite young. I was around 2 years old, and my family were into skiing. My parents enjoyed it in the adult years, and we went on family ski holiday every year. My brother's 2 years older than me, so we did that, and then they took us to our local dry slope where I started going through the lessons, working up the ranks through to race training. The coaches saw potential in me. They were always trying to push my parents, but my parents never liked me going too fast. And then we'd do our holidays, and then I kind of progressed to on snow. It was very steady progression.
Really naturally quite good balance. Do you take to it really well?
They said I was always quite naturally I like to go fast, and I was always the kid that they had to pull back and say she needs to slow down. I think I was very naturally athletic as a kid and just enjoyed going fast and scaring my parents.
No fear?
No fear.
That's really good. I guess that's two of the main components.
Yeah.
Basically to have a bit of balance and then obviously not to be scared of going so fast.
Definitely.
And you started out on dry ski slopes?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of years on dry ski slopes. We did the family holiday, but I only started racing training on snow till I was quite old, but I think I wouldn't have had it really any other way. I think I've learnt skills on a dry slope that other people might not have, having spent so many years there, and yeah, it taught me a lot.
What's the biggest difference, the biggest learning curve going from dry slope skiing to obviously on snow?
I'd say there's a technical aspect. So the dry slope's very short, it's very fast, and it's quite aggressive. Whilst on snow, the runs or races are over a minute each run, and you've got to be a lot more technically in tune to your skiing. So there was quite a big shock from being very good by just going fast and not being scared to go fast. And then on snow there was a lot of technical lessons that I had to learn to keep up with the Austrians. The Austrians,
yeah, obviously. Yeah. I imagine with it being on your doorstep, you can go from a really early age, and they're out there all the time, aren't they? I believe you started competing quite early as well back in the UK.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Really quite well. I started at kind of under 8. It's a very niche little competitive tour throughout the UK, but once you're in it, it's great fun, and I spent years and years. I'll still race now, come back and do a few fun races, help the kids out, but I spent a lot of years every summer going from place to northeast, northwest, south, everywhere in the UK, and I really enjoyed it. We did it as a family. My dad helped us, my mum did the packed lunches, and Rob's raced, so I really enjoyed it.
Were you sporty in school?
Yeah, very, every team that I could have wanted to get in, I'd try, and did, and it was a nice childhood, being involved in all the sports teams, and was just quite naturally picked sports up quite well and had that love for sport.
Did you enjoy school?
I think I did. I really enjoyed it, being with friends every day, and it gave me a nice balance, especially when I got to GCSE A level. It did give me a balance between school and skiing, and it gave me a bit of time off just being with your friends, and so I did really enjoy it.
And when did Team GB first kind of get involved?
So I started competing for GB Snow Sport, Team GB, when I was 13. I think I got my first call to race internationally for Team GB, and then I raced for them every year that I was kind of up to 16, and then made the national squad at 16 for the adults, and then had Youth Olympics this January.
Right, and how did that go?
Being selected was really good. That was something I'd worked towards for a long time through my knee injury, and then about just over a week before my first race I got a pretty severe concussion, and that meant I was ruled out quite quickly from competing.
I think it's kind of obvious that skiing is quite a dangerous sport, but I think people probably don't realise how often these injuries occur, and I think basically the other skier that we have has recently had a big crash as well with a concussion. It is so dangerous. How do you play that off in your mind? Does that weigh on you a little heavily next time you go out?
I'd say it never really weighed on my mind until I was injured, and then it has become, I think that's something that not I struggle with, but it does play on your mind. You're going against all natural thoughts. You want to go faster when your body's saying, I'm scared, this isn't what we should be doing. But I think that's all part of the reason I love it, pushing your limits and going until you're scared when you do, not abnormal to be going really fast and not be scared, but I think that's why I like it.
You touched briefly on your knee injury as well. I think that was an MCL tear, was it, or was it complete? What kind of injury was it?
So it was a complete tear of my MCL in January 21. So that was my first year competing in Fizz, which is kind of adults racing. So that was quite tough. I'd had a good start to that, and I'd say it was quite young to do quite a big injury, which was hard being at home and my parents were at work, and then everyone else, my brother and all my teammates, carried on with the season. The season goes on. So that was quite tough, but made it to the other side of it. And
in terms of the physical recovery, what kind of things were you doing?
It was very slow. It was kind of even just starting with bending my knee to 90 degrees and building up strength and kind of just tensing the muscles, trying to activate the muscles that I hadn't been using for months. And then it was very slow body weighted exercises, trying to increase flexibility, mobility, and then building up strength until it took a while to get back to full strength. It was
roughly how long?
Quite a few months. I had a definite imbalance of muscle tissues from each leg, and through the testing, I failed the first return to snow testing that you have to do to make sure you're strong enough, fit enough to get back. So I failed that. So then we went back to work, carried on with rehab, and then I did it the second time and was cleared to start return to snow.
In terms of the mechanics of skiing, where's the pressure? Because I imagine the knees are taking the most of the pressure.
So knees, it's very kind of a quad and glute dominant sport, which I think why the knees do get battered quite a bit. I'd say the whole body feels it. As much as you think it's a leg-based sport and you're fighting against gravity with your legs, I think your core has got to be really stable, and then everything's working. But I'd say legs mainly.
In terms of your mindset coming back after an injury, how do you deal with the psychological aspect?
I think it was quite hard. At the time I thought I was fine and just push on through, go hard, go fast. But now I take a bit of time to reflect, and I do think I struggled a bit more than I let on, and it did play on my mind for quite a bit afterwards. But I think time definitely helps, and once you've gone a while without being injured, you gain your confidence, and I think that's something I just had to learn, that it's going to take a bit of time.
I think probably the best medicine is to come back and win. I think you had a British champs just after sort of coming back. How did that go?
We wasn't sure whether to go for it or not. There's a British champs every year, so it wasn't like a major competition, but we said we'd go for it, we'd do the speed events, we'd do everything, and I came with under 18s titles and everything, under 21s. I was the vice downhill senior champion as well, so it was very successful championships. Coming away with the overall junior, so that's U18, U21. I think that was the confidence boost that I kind of needed after injury.
That must be so good to come back and not only get through the races but to actually win. Did you feel like, okay, normal service resumed, I'm back on it?
Yeah. At the time I didn't think how kind of impressive it was, but now I look back on it, I was like, I did, the months of rehab and the hardship through rehab, it really did pay off, and it was a very nice way to end the season, a tough season on a high.
So good. So obviously skiing, the amount of travel involved, I imagine the kit's very expensive. Can you tell me a little bit about the funding situation and about perhaps how Sports for Champions is going to look to help you with that?
So the funding's really quite poor within snow sports in Britain. It's very poorly funded, and the funding that is received from sponsors is only at a very high level. So the World Cup guys, which is only about 3, 4, 5 of them are funded. And so I've been skiing under Team GB and GB Snow Sports since I was 13, but you've never received any kind of financial help, or there's not even a pathway. So I've gone through a private academy, and that's what most people kind of do until they reach Europa Cup, World Cup level. So it is very hard. There's a lot of pressure. My brother skis as well. He's Europa Cup skier. So there's a lot of pressure on my family and us to, work part-time jobs to help fund it. So Sports for Champions definitely, even just a mental release type of knowing that it's going to be okay and there's some support and help there, never mind the actual support.
It's so good to hear. That's why we do what we do. I sit down across from all the athletes that we have, and the same story repeats really. People who are at the very highest level of the sport, completely committed in their entire daily life to being the best they can, and the funding just nowhere near matches that. What does a typical day of training look like for you?
So on the hill we'll get up pretty early, between 5:30, and then I like to start my day with half an hour of stretching and mobility, just warming up the muscles. And then breakfast will be on the hill for around 7:30, and then a couple of hours training. We get quite a high volume in quite quickly, lapping on the chairlift, T-bar, whatever it is, so we can get quite a high volume in a short amount of time. So we'll be done with training for before lunchtime, and then we'll spend the afternoon doing our skis. That takes quite a while, tuning, preparing them.
What does that involve? Sorry.
It's like kind of like the edges, because we train and race quite a lot on like ice and very hard surfaces. To be able to grip, the edges need to be quite sharp, and then the bases need to be well waxed in so they like kind of glide across the snow. So we spend a lot of time making sure our skis are fast and sharp.
So you're sharpening the edge of the actual
ski?
So
it's like a 90 degree, and so I sharpen mine at an 87 degree, and it's like a metal file, and you file the edge, then it becomes sharper. Like we often say sometimes, for our skis are blunt, it's like skiing on spoons, like like a spoon on an ice rink wouldn't grip. So we need a very sharp edge, and then also the bases are quite important when we're running a flat ski. More in speed events like the downhill and Super G, it's quite important to have fast.
So you're waxing the bottom.
Yes, it's like wax, like almost looks like candle wax.
Right.
And then we'll do some gym in the afternoon, do some recovery. We'll try to go out and explore wherever we are, whether that be Europe or New Zealand, for example. So it's quite busy days, and then end it with some stretching and recovery at the end of the day. What
kind of things are you focusing on in the gym?
In the gym, it's very, very mixed. So there's a lot of endurance involved. There's a lot of weightlifting, strength-based stuff. But then there's also agility, coordination. I feel like it's a sport that balance. It requires all aspects of fitness and components, so it's very, very different. Each day we'll do something different, and it's varied.
I guess it makes it all worth it when you get to go and explore sort of an idyllic mountainside town at the end of the day.
Yeah.
How's your approach to diet and nutrition? I
think I try to just fuel my body, listen to what it needs. It's very important, and kind of a balance. If we go out for some coffee and cake, then you can do that. You work very hard, and there needs to be a balance in life and enjoying things, and I just try to fuel myself so then I can ski and train as best as possible.
I think it's a really important point, because I think a lot of people, particularly younger people, when looking at athletes, think that they must just live this perfect, healthy life with never eating anything bad or what's perceived as bad. But actually, so much of it is about making sure your body has the fuel to go and do the things that you need to do. It's really sad to hear people talking about restricting.
And then enjoying food as well, I think, is a big part. We love to go out to cafes and eat out and bake and cook our own food, and I think that's something that needs to be enjoyed more, enjoying food and fueling yourself, and making new recipes for cereal bars on the hill, and I do quite enjoy it, and I think I've got quite a healthy relationship with food.
That sounds great. What motivates you?
I'd say I've got quite an internal motivation. I enjoy pushing myself and working deep into the pain cave, and then enjoy feeling the reward of standing on the top of a podium. I think I quite enjoy that, but also trying to do my family and my brother proud. I think family is a big part of my life, and I want to be successful for my brother, with my family, and they've made a lot of sacrifices, so it does play on my mind that I do want to make it all worth it and bring success.
What's your greatest moment in your career so far? Obviously you're quite young, I imagine there's more to come.
Greatest moment, I'd say either European Youth Olympic selection. I worked very hard at that for a few years between injury, or also the international circuit in Czech that I came third at quite a young age, against like all countries in Europe, even further. That was quite a big achievement. It was under a lot of pressure as well, which I don't think I was very good at, but I raced quite well then.
And your greatest challenge?
Greatest challenge, I think it has been quite mentally hard the last couple of years, sorry. Not that I've really realised it at the time, but now I look back and I think that was very hard, and I did very well to keep pushing through that, and sometimes just knowing when to take it down a notch and when to be a bit easier on yourself, I'd say.
Definitely all about balance. And in terms of legacy, what kind of legacy would you like to leave?
I'd say enjoyment in sport and participation. I think I'm very lucky to be in the position that I am, skiing. There's 2 of us skiing in my family, and there's kids that don't even get the chance to go to football training or have a pair of football boots. And I think I want to make sure that everyone, everywhere, gets a chance at being a sports person.
And finally, if you had some advice for somebody who's maybe, some practical advice, for somebody who's maybe thinking of getting into sport, or perhaps skiing in particular?
I'd say just go for it. I know a lot of people say it, but I think that's where I'm happiest. I absolutely love it, and you make friends, you get confidence. I'd say skiing, just go try out your local dry slope, but just sport in general, I don't think you can't not be happy after playing a game of football or playing, being in the gym. The endorphins that you get is insane, and you won't regret playing sport, I'd say.
There you go. Well, I think that's a fantastic note to end it on. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome, and thank you for everyone joining at home. We'll see you next time. Cheers.